Hello, welcome all of you here once again in another session, and this is going to be Shift to 2021 RBI Grade B PYQ analysis. We are going to discuss English in this session now. Let's start the session without any delay. In case of any difficulty, query, question, you can drop it out in the comment section. We'll be happy to answer or resolve them. Let's go straight, just reducing the brightness so that it will be clearer. Okay, should be better now. Welcome, present out here live. Vedansh, good evening, brother. Good afternoon, I'm sorry. Welcome, Nancy, Jai Janendra, Vaibhav, Isha, Bubbly. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, hey dear. Let's go. The first one. In the given question, a word has been given and there has been three ways in which the word has been used in similar or different contexts. You need to see which of these has been correctly used. We need to find the correct one. The meaning of the word imbue is to insert something among the other things at different intervals, at irregular intervals, at different places, here, there, and such. At different places. Okay. Insert something at different places among the other things. Starting with the first one. The curator spoke of the artist's work as inserting the canvas with emotional depth and cultural memory. For sure, in your painting, for example, you can insert emotional depth, cultural memory along with the other details of the painting. So not bad, that is fine. Coach focused on imbuing his players with strategic discipline. It also takes this fixed preposition with, imbuing something with this, imbuing the players with the strategic discipline and sense of collective purpose in between the cricket matches also, or hockey or football matches also. We see, come on, we've been going pretty well. Let's go. Yes, we will win this game. In between the session also, in between the game also, we keep on say encouraging them and such, filling them with the discipline, the sense of purpose and such. Not bad. The third one. The technician succeeded in imbuing the machine with additional storage and capacity through firmware upgrade. No. First of all, this word generally is used to inspire, as you can see in the abstract senses marked in the first and the second one. The third one is just putting the physical thing, the storage capacity out there. And remember, it is to insert at irregular intervals, at different intervals. You are just going to put the storage capacity, say your hard drive, for the firmware upgrade at irregular intervals, at different intervals. I don't think so. That is to be fixing the machine and something such. That's not the basic meaning of this word. I repeat, it is generally used in the abstract senses for inspiration in general, and that is not the correct one. So leaving the third one behind and the first and the second one only, A and B. Okay, what they have stated, let me check. The word means to permeate. See, inspire deeply, absolutely, with a feeling, the abstract sense, quality, the abstract sense, the idea, the abstract sense. It's generally used in contexts involving abstract qualities, absolutely, emotions, values, not in reference to the tangible attributes like hardware or physical capacity. Slew. I think you've gone through it during practice. Slew as a noun is a slew of, which is equal to a number of, the first and foremost usage. Apart from that, slew is to, what should I say, digress, I can say, change your direction violently, just like a vehicle losing control and going in this direction or that direction. That is also possible as a verb. As a noun, a number of. Rohit. He presented a number of data points, correct, to support this or that. He lost control should be correct because it is used in this context as a verb, and began to slew sideways down the hill. Absolutely correct. The journalist criticized the administration for releasing a slew, a number that lacked, a number of what? A number of data points, a number of anything such you need to mark here. They are releasing a number that lacked credibility. Number of what? Incomplete. It's like a lot of. It's like a number of. a slew of. So Neha, good afternoon. Hey dear. Yes, the first and the second one only, not the third one, is going to be the appropriate one. This is also the same. Intersperse. Inserting things between at irregular intervals, at different intervals also. Quite the same, I would say. That was to inspire. This is inter, in between. Sperse, scatter. You have to insert things at different intervals. As you can see with the help of examples out there, the director enhanced the documentary by adding footage between the interviews. Perfect. Artist was praised for adding vibrant strokes across the canvas. We had such an example in the first one also, to create contrast and rhythm. Perfect. The mathematician solved the equation by adding at different intervals a variable in place of the constant. No, you can't intersperse in between, add scattered in that way at different places. You are putting a different variable in the place of the constant, but that should stay the same at just one place, not at different places and such. So the third one, once again, is going to be horrible. Yep, not abstract. Perfect. So A and B should be correct, and it is. Now we have word swap, quite easy in my opinion. Judging from my conversations with other activists, there seem to be gaps between environmental groups that focus on reconsidering our relationships with the natural world, which have a tendency to be less justice based, and seems good to me all across. Political, and those that focus on exposing the structures that have brought us to the current crisis. Seems good to me, but let me check once more. Judging from my conversations with the others, there seem to me gaps between this and that focus on this, those focus on that, and we have a tendency to do something that has brought us to this natural crisis or the current crisis. Seem all okay. Should be no change required. And absolutely it is. On the other hand, the proliferation of technology, not bad, has democratized access to information, has streamlined government service delivery, and has opened all across the same. It has third form. It has third form. I don't think so. That has to be wrong. It has third form. New markets for Indian businesses, while on the other hand, the rise of the privacy realm has brought it with a surge of malfeasance and concerns about user digital. Digital is an adjective. I think so. All was fine till that point. Should we replace these? While on the other hand, the rise of digital realm, yes, we have digital communication all across, has brought us for the concerns or to the concerns about user privacy. That makes sense. All fine. Proliferation of technology, streamlined government delivery, Indian businesses with the rise of digital technology, concerns about privacy. For sure, DE must be replaced. The leaves of poverty is gone. You need to change A because you can't say leaves of poverty is. That has to be a singular noun here. Can I say the root of poverty is capability deprivation that leaves an individual unable to earn sufficient income through work or entrepreneurship. Perfect. Absolutely. The root of this problem, absolutely, brother. The root cause of this problem is this. That leaves one unable to earn sufficient income. We are obviously going to earn income through this or that. A and B must be replaced. Root cause of the problem. Yep. Welcome, Manish. Good afternoon, brother. Have a smile, please. A leading global sports brand has unveiled a blank space new statue honoring the nation's deep athletic legacy. Positioned in a bustling urban square, the statue blank space an athlete mid motion, symbolizing strength, resilience, and national pride. crafted from bronze and steel, blends modern design with the traditional symbolism, highlighting the contributions to global blank space from tennis to basketball to volleyball and water polo. The installation was, we'll read that later. What can be there? I think has unveiled a subtle new statue. I don't think so. Subtle matches the tone of new statue, like Statue of Liberty and Poverty. No, it's something else. Leading global sports brand has unveiled a minimal new statue. I don't think so. It matches the tone of the passage, highlighting things, saying minimal, small, subtle, small, striking, attracting. Seems good. Ordinary statue, quiet statue. I think the third one should be correct. Let me capture the remaining ones. Does it satisfy both these now? So they have unveiled a striking statue, an attracting one, honoring the nation's deep athletic legacy, positioned in a bustling city. The statue captures, shows, not bad, the athlete mid-motion, symbolizing strength in this. Crafted from bronze, it blends modern design with the traditional symbolism, highlighting the contributions to global sports. Not bad. It won't be fitness either, recreation or play either games or sports. We have the better choice from tennis, basketball. All these are sports for sure. Third one must be the answer, and it's now in the passage 5 words are marked. Yes, of course they are. One of these words may not be used inappropriately in the context of the passage. Select that and mark your answer. Okay, we'll check. The installation was commissioned to inspire future generations and celebrate athletes who have elevated Serbia's name on the international stage. Not bad. Inspire future generations. I think this is all correct. Need not change. Surrounding the statue are interactive panels that narrate iconic moments in the sports history. Surrounding the statue are interactive panels. That is also fine. I don't think so. It needs to be changed. The brand collaborated with the local artists. Collaboration with is all correct. To ensure authenticity and cultural resonance, this initiative is a part of the company's broader campaign to promote inclusivity and community engagement through sports. Not bad. Now, it has to be none of these. We don't have that. Now, the last one is left. The Serbia statue now stands not only as a tribute to athletic excellence, but also as a beacon. Hey, come here. Beacon is to call someone of national unity. And we have a statue that is a tribute to athletic excellence and hey, come here. Beacon of national unity. Somebody commented, a symbol of national unity makes sense. A symbol makes sense. May I put a homonym such? Or homophone? Remember this beacon of light, of guidance, of national unity. So I think for sure. Not this beacon, which is to call or invite someone, that gesture. Beacon of symbol of unity, of resilience, of strength, of athletic excellence. So that has to be the correct one. The incorrect one, I'm sorry. Yes, brother. Beacon of light. Exactly. Which of the following most accurately captures the central idea conveyed in the passage? RCA ki close test. Okay. The primary aim of the statue is commercial promotion. I don't see any commercial activity here that you are promoting it because of commercialization and anything such. Nor can you. If you can, mention. Statue and surrounding features reflect a culturally rooted and inclusive tribute to the athletic heritage intended to inspire future generations and unite communities. Nothing can be better than this. Straight marked, encouraging, inspiring future generations, celebrating their legacy, excellence and such. Culture is there. Culture, they have mentioned it. Nothing commercial. Done. Now we have an RC. Work-life balance has emerged as a central concern in organizational sociology, reflecting the shifting dynamics of work, family, and personal identity in the 21st century workplace. As employment structures evolve due to globalization, digitization, and changing gender roles, boundaries between the professional and personal life have become increasingly porous. Sociologists, porous, wow, and organizational theorists argue that achieving balance is no longer an individual task alone, but a structural challenge embedded in the culture and leadership of modern organizations. As at its core, the concept of work life balance refers to an individual's ability to allocate time and energy efficiency effectively between work responsibilities and non work roles like caregiving, leisure, community engagement. Imbalance occurs when the work demands interfere with the non work life, often resulting in stress, burnout, and decreased job satisfaction. However, sociology goes beyond this psychological framing by highlighting how organizational culture, leadership styles, and management practices structure the choices available to employees. Organizational culture plays an important role in shaping the experiences of balance, as somebody's dimension theory suggests. Cultures with high masculinity scores often valorize long hours and career ambitions over personal time. Has to be negative. Cultures with high masculinity scores often valorize long hours and career ambition over personal time, reinforcing norms of overwork. Absolutely. In contrast, cultures or organizations with a more feminine orientation tends to support policies promoting flexibility and care responsibilities. These cultural values are reproduced within companies through formal policies and informal norms, even when organizations offer flexible work arrangements like remote work or flexible scheduling. Their uptake may be limited if the prevailing culture stigmatizes those who use them. Leadership style also significantly influences work life outcomes. Transformational leaders who emphasize employee development and empathy are more likely to foster environments supportive of balance. In contrast, transactional leadership, focused primarily on performance metrics, may contribute to cultures of presenteeism, where visibility is equated with productivity. Research shows that supervisor support for work life balance directly correlates with employee well being and job retention and organizational commitment. Leaders thus act as gatekeepers, either enabling or constraining employees' ability to manage their dual roles. Superb. Leaders act as gatekeepers, either enabling or restricting your ability to manage the roles. Management strategies also reflect broader structural inequalities. They reflect broader structural inequalities. Okay. Sociological studies indicate that lower wage workers, especially in service and manufacturing sectors, often have the least access to flexible work options, obviously, despite often having the greatest load and need. Additionally, women and minority employees may face additional scrutiny when seeking accommodations, revealing how work life balance is also a matter of equity and inclusion. The intersectionality of gender, class, and race complicates the application of universal work life balance policies and demands more nuanced, inclusive leadership. From a sociological standpoint, work life balance should not be treated only as a personal responsibility or a human resources initiative, but as a systematic organizational issue. Institutions that genuinely integrate work life balance into their culture do so by embedding supportive practices at multiple levels: policy design, leadership training, and organizational narratives. As marked in one of the works, even adequate, modest structural changes like rethinking meeting schedules or setting email boundaries can lead to significant improvements in work life integration without sacrificing performance. Done. Jai Maiki, Unnati. Welcome. Muskan, Radhe Radhe, never be late. Never be sorry for being late. Which of the following aligns with the passage's perspectives on how systemic inequalities intersect with work life balance? The passage emphasizes that gender and racial disparities have a negligible impact. I won't say so. Gender and they have negligible impact because he has marked masculinity with a different score and feminine orientation with a different approach. So, not going to say that. The correct one or the incorrect one? Passage suggests addressing work-life balance issues requires a dual approach, focusing equally on individual employee, but the passage is not talking about individual employees. It's talking about the organization, institution, leadership, organization. Even it mentioned the gender, male or female, but it did mention not for a single person, but for everyone, I think. So I don't think so. This addressing work life, focusing on each individual employee, not at all. Passage argues that organizations must take into account the influence of systemic inequalities of the system, not for a single person like gender. Wage, obviously, they have talked about wage also. So, work life balance, yes, we had this lower wage also, lower wage workers. Systemic inequalities like gender and wage class to create truly inclusive work life balance initiatives, I think yes, and it is. No, Nancy, it's not. Absolutely. Passage discusses organizations must take into account the influence of systemic inequalities, maybe in terms of gender, yep, maybe in terms of wage. Lower wage workers have the least access to flexible work options despite often having the greatest need in order to create truly inclusive work life balance initiatives. Yep. What is the meaning of the word feminine orientation in the passage? A focus on traditionally feminine roles and responsibilities in family and household settings. Not at all. It was there in the company. It was there in the organization. In contrast, cultures or organizations with a feminine orientation, not for family and household settings. Emphasis on gender neutral approaches. I don't think so. That was neutral because we saw a difference. No. A perspective that acknowledges the unique challenges and contributions of women, particularly in relation to balancing work and family roles. Probably yes. Feminine orientation tend to support policies promoting flexibility and care responsibilities. Uh, yes. Better choice. Shift in workplace culture to prioritize male dominated. No. Somehow, feminine has the priority. Supporting policies, promoting flexibility. No. Suggestion that work life balance issues are only relevant to women. Not at all. We have the best choice then. A perspective, not straight from the passage, that acknowledges, yep, the unique challenges and contributions of women, particularly in relation to balancing your work and family roles. And that's what this flexibility, supporting policies, and all can define. The best choice. I didn't say that's the answer, but that's the most appropriate. Absolutely after elimination. Which is all the following statements are correct except which one? That means we have to find the incorrect one. Gender, race have significant effects, of course, male female you can see here, on work life balance. Intersection of gender and race plays a significant role, of course it does. Gender and race are key factors, of course they are. Gender and race have no impact. Do you need to check the others? No. The first saying the same, they play an important role, they play an important role, they play an important role, they play no role. Little, remember, is always negative, negligible sense. The whole passage is highlighting gender and race apart from wages. So we can't say it has no impact such. Which one correctly matches the concept? It was marked straight, I think. This, yeah, somewhere here. Transactional leadership. Let's check. Work life this. Flexible work policies automatically effective regardless of culture or peer perceptions. I think that was the feminine one, not for all, but we can check. In contrast, okay, we can see there. Transformational leaders who emphasize employee development and empathy are more likely to foster environments supportive of balance. Transactional leadership focused primarily on performance metrics may contribute to presenteeism. let me check this line. Seems easy. Transactional leadership, focusing on performance metrics, contributes to presenteeism. Okay. Flexible work policies, fine. Leadership styles, transformational, transactional. Okay, transformational here. Leaders support balance through empathy and development, who emphasize employee development and empathy are more likely to foster environment supportive of balance. Yes, that is correct. Transactional leaders, transactional promote presenteeism. Perfect. Need not check the others. Okay, straight. Which of the following most accurately captures the concluding perspective of the passage regarding the institutional approach to work-life balance? The passage asserts that offering flexible work schedules is sufficient for resolving all employee balance concern. I think wage is left now, or wages. Passage suggests that leadership, empathy, and employee resilience are more critical than organizational policy in managing dual role conflicts. This is horrible. Which of the following captures the concluding perspective of the passage, concluding, regarding the institutional approach to work-life balance? Passage suggests offering flexible work schedules is sufficient. My camera has gone off. Let me change the battery in seconds. Excuse me for this. Five seconds, please. Okay. The passage asserts offering flexible schedules, institutions that integrate work-life balance into their culture by embodying supportive practices at multiple levels, policy design, leadership training, organizational narratives, and such. Suggest leadership, empathy, and employee resilience are more critical than organizational policy. I don't think so. Male one won't satisfy here. Work-life balance initiatives, if not coupled with structural integration and cultural change, risk being superficial and ineffective in producing lasting organizational impact. Okay. Passage emphasizes employee autonomy, not at all. Passage is not emphasizing the employee. It's not talking about any single employee, and that too autonomous, can do everything. No. Despite varying leadership styles, the passage concludes only personal motivation determines the extent of now. Either the first one or the second one or the third one. Okay. Offering flexible work schedules is sufficient for resolving all concerns. I won't pick the first one for sure. B or C has to be. Passage suggests leadership, empathy, but here, concluding this passage, they are not talking about empathy and such. Work-life balance initiatives, if not coupled with structural integration, okay, and cultural change, okay, risk being superficial and ineffective. Oh, hallelujah. Absolutely. See, here, Rishabh, they're not talking about empathy and sympathy here. They discussed empathy and sympathy in between the passage. The question clearly states the question, which of the following most accurately captures the concluding perspective of the passage, not in between or in the beginning. The concluding perspective. Radhe Radhe Vaibhav. So from a sociological standpoint, okay, we can read from this. Quick. The intersectionality of gender, class, race complicates the application of work-life balance. Universal one, it demands more nuanced and inclusive leadership. From a sociological standpoint, work-life balance should not be treated only as a personal responsibility. Yep, they are not talking about any personal responsibility all across the Organization they are discussing or take into consideration. A human resource initiative, but a systemic organizational issue. Institutions that genuinely integrate work-life balance into their culture do so by embedding. How do they do that? By supportive practices at multiple levels, by policy design, leadership training, organizational narratives, and such and such and such. Leadership empathy is not there. Offering flexible is all no, we just won't say. Rishabh and everyone. See, work-life balance initiatives, they are actually talking in a negative tone. If you do not work hard, you will not succeed. That means if you work hard, you will succeed. See, if not coupled with structural integration, that's what they have said, you have to apply things at different levels. We can say different structures of policy design, leadership training, organizational narratives. If not coupled with this, structural integration, we are discussing the structure ones, structural changes, and cultural change, of course, we are discussing into their culture. You integrate work-life balance into your culture. So both of these are there. If not coupled with these organizations risk being superficial, ineffective in producing lasting organizational impact. Of course, we have to produce organizational impact, and that to the lasting one. Okay, doubts welcome. At least those who are alive can comment. That is the negative one. It's not saying if you work, it is saying if you work hard, you will succeed. It is saying if you don't work hard, you won't succeed. The correct one. Okay, next. This is a different, no, that's not a different RC. Which of these, the superficial one, yes, once again, when removed, the sentence remains the same. From a standpoint, balance should not be treated only as a personal, that is correct, but as a systemic issue. Institutions that integrate work-life balance into their culture do so by embedding supportive practices. You need a verb there for sure. The intersectionality of gender, class, race complicates the application. Of course it does. Now, as marked in one of the works, even adequate, sufficient, modest, somewhat such, structural changes. That's an adjective with somewhat similar meaning to that. We can drop this. Say, adequate changes, modest changes can lead to significant improvements. For sure, that has to be the redundant one, NS. Yes, absolutely. We will discuss this RC quite soon. Let's discuss some easy peasy in between to build confidence of mine, of yours. Coveting the directorship to surveillance his bureaucratic empire. What? Coveting the directorship to surveillance, noun, his bureaucratic empire, another noun. We can't have two nouns together. However, no, it's not however, someone who were disband the extent of his role in domestic build operations in, what is this? Obviously word swap, but all seem horrible to me. In domestic build operations and promise to concealed this. To build your empire, I would say A in the place of D. His domestic surveillance won't be horrible, and this singular subject with this V2, and we can have this V1 over here. He concealed the extent of his role in domestic surveillance operations and promised to disband the intelligence division. I think, yes, AD and CE. ADCE. Perfect. Shouldn't be wrong. Yes, it is. When I started my winter, I can start my winter. A has to be changed. A has to be changed. Either this or that. In finance, my mentor at that time was the only other woman on the team during career. During career? Just a sec. During winter, and when I started my career, AD, done. Need not check the others. During winter, when I started my career, done. And career in finance, best. Someone had a cigarette hanging out of his memory. How can someone hang out a cigarette of his memory? A needs to be touched in two options we have here. While he vacantly melodies up at the sky. He melodies up, no objection. We have a strong mouth for music. Strong mouth for music? Okay. You probably have a cigarette in your mouth and a strong taste or memory for music. AD, once again. Now BF, let's check. While he vacantly stared up at the sky. Perfect. Staring up at the sky. And since you're talking about music, you may say melodies over here. Recall lyrics and melodies. BF and AD. Doubts welcome. Many canyon dropped. After many, you can't have a singular noun. A needs to be touched. AD or AE? AD. Many families lost their savings during, correct? AE. Many waterfalls lost their savings. No. AE has to be correct. This one. CD need not check. AD, AD, AD. That's not AD. I'm sorry. AD. Many families lost their savings. Clicked wrong. Sorry. Okay. Many families lost their savings during the war and nothing to fall back on. The river has carved out quite the picturesque canyon over several this towering from this to that. Yep. Yes, yes, yes. Now, this is starter connector in a mixed manner. You have four phrases. Pick the most appropriate one. Protesters with colossal letters spelling out "We want democracy." Okay, first phrase and second then. First, they attacked the new fish in the aquarium. Protesters, aquarium is a noun. Protesters is another noun. We can't have two nouns together. Nope. Phrase, protesters with this spelling out "We want democracy." Then the cabbage plantations were, you don't have a finite verb for this. No. First and second. First, they attacked the new fish in aquarium, the cabbage plantations, we don't have a conjunction. Third, I roamed abandoned streets that had been painted by protesters with letters spelling out "We want democracy." Has to be correct. Third and first, painted by they attacked, impossible. Prepositions can't have a subject. Okay. Bubbly, superb. Objections welcome. Do it again. Are particularly vulnerable to a new wave of infections. You can't start with the phrase, first of all, are what? You need a subject, either this or that. Disease experts say that places that had low levels of natural infection or have experienced low rates of vaccination and boosting are particularly vulnerable. Places such are vulnerable to this and that. Perfect. Need not check the others. Next. Phrase can't start off their shareholders and accumulate wealth without limit, comma. Many investors have been pulling out of the Indian market. Doesn't make sense. Off should be at the beginning. Nope. These three. First and third. Many investors have been pulling out of the Indian market. Companies are bound. You don't have a conjunction. Drop it. Why did I do this? Just a sec. You can't start with the phrase. Many investors, first and third, you don't have a conjunction. Either this or that again. Second, and crashed, you can't start with and also. Third one, companies are bound by law to act in the selfish interest of their stakeholders and they are bound to accumulate wealth without limit. That has to be correct, and it is. Okay, last, before we head on to the RC. Europe is competing in global markets for the limited petroleum supply. Can start with this. Should I check this? Because the only one starting with the phrase. Europe is competing in global markets for the limited petroleum supply and they have warned a jump in demand could inflate prices further and leave poorer nations Vedansh. Okay, 5 to 6 questions are left. Heading on to the RC then. Next. The landscape of global business economy is undergoing a profound transformation, fundamentally reshaping the mechanisms of job creation. 19 World Development Report by the World Bank titled The Changing Nature of Work highlights how technological advancement, shifting business models, and evolving labor demands. Let me read this again, I'm sorry. Landscape of reshaping the mechanisms of job creation highlights how technological advancement, shifting business models, and evolving labor demands are redefining economic activity and employment generation. Technology, especially digital platforms and automation, is changing traditional business indexes that once measured productivity and economic performance. Historically, job creation was linked to industrial expansion, labor intensive sectors. However, in the modern economy, productivity gains are increasingly derived from intangible assets like data, software, intellectual property. These assets, although difficult to quantify through conventional economic indexes, are becoming central to value creation. Cool. This shift affects how jobs are created and sustained. While fears of large scale job losses due to automation persist, they can change the RC anyhow in between or change the questions. The first para was not straight. This shift affects how jobs are created and sustained. While fears of large scale job losses due to automation persist, report emphasizes technology is also generating new tasks and occupations, particularly in services and knowledge based industries. The index of business activity, when recalibrated to account for innovation and platform based business models, reveals a parallel growth in employment opportunities, although with the data provided is so vast, uh, although with significant changes in the nature of work. I'm sorry, the index of business activity, when recalibrated with to account for innovation and platform-based business models, reveals a parallel growth in employment opportunities, although with significant changes in the nature of work. The informal sector continues to play a significant role in job creation, especially in the low and middle-income countries. The report notes that while informal sector growth remains a goal, informal economy is often where most job creation occurs. These jobs, however, tend to lack security and benefits, highlighting the need to rethink labor practices and safety nets in line with the current business models. One of the core findings is that investment in human capital is now more critical than ever. Education, lifelong learning, adaptability are becoming essential as workers navigate a dynamic labor market shaped by rapid technological change. Countries that score high on human capital indices tend to be better positioned in the evolving business economy. Okay, both in terms of competitiveness and employment growth. In other words, strong link exists between the human capital index and job creation outcomes. In addition, the report underscores the importance of regulatory frameworks that balance labor protection with flexibility. Excessive rigidity in labor laws can discourage formal hiring. Excessive rigidity in labor laws can discourage formal hiring, while weak protections can leave workers vulnerable. Successful economies are those that maintain a regulatory environment conducive to both business growth and job security. Business economy indexes that track ease of doing business, contract enforcement, and startup conditions show a strong correlation between formal employment rates and entrepreneurial activity. Fine. Social protection systems must also evolve. Traditional safety nets, often tied to formal employment, are becoming less effective in a world where gig and platform work is on the rise. Report recommends universal social protection schemes decoupled from employment status to ensure, my goodness, so much data, that workers in all sectors, including the self-employed and part-time laborers, can benefit. This expansion supports labor market participation and encourages risk taking, both of which contribute to job creation. Global trends indicate that the benefits of technological change and economic expansion are not just evenly distributed. Developing countries face dual challenge of embracing technological innovation while also addressing labor market informality and skills mismatches. The business economy index in these regions often reflects high energy but low productivity. Report calls for targeted investments in infra education institutions to bridge this gap and create inclusive labor markets. Investments. Moreover, cross-country comparisons in the report suggest ये report देना यार demographic trends, urbanization rates, and gender equity play significant roles in shaping business activity and employment patterns. Countries with favorable demographics and inclusive labor policies tend to experience more robust, just as countries with favorable demographics, inclusive labor policies tend to experience more robust job creation even during economic restructuring. So much data to pick from or choose from. Absolutely. Even though I had this report in my hand, say, I will not be able to find answers so precisely. No problem. Let's see. Which of the following best explains how the passage addresses the impact of informal employment and knowledge-based industries on job creation? If informal was good, but lacking security and such was there. Informal sector continues to play a significant one. These lack security and benefits, highlighting the need to rethink about these. Okay. Growth of informal employment in low and middle countries is linked to decreased job security and reduced long-term economic stability. Not bad. But this is just defining the employment in the informal sector. We also need the knowledge-based industries. Knowledge-based industries are not mentioned. They have formal, informal. They have mentioned knowledge-based industries. No. Informal work is seen as a temporary phase in economic development, which will eventually be replaced by more formal. They haven't said so. Informal economy offers a secure alternative. No, it lacks security. Has to be the answer. Informal and knowledge-based employment sectors are growing concurrently, with both contributing to the overall expansion of the labor market in the modern economy. If I get wrong, no problem. Thank God. Radhe Radhe. Not so sure, obviously, because so tricky the options are. They asked, what about the informal employment? Thank God. And knowledge-based industries. The first one is just talking about the informal one, not the knowledge-based. Knowledge-based is not mentioned. They have mentioned it. Knowledge-based industries. They've talked about both. Informal is seen as a temporary phase, which will be replaced by more formal. They haven't said so. D and E. Informal offers a secure. No, it lacks security. It lacks security. So the only option left. Yes, brother. According to the passage, that was tricky, honestly. Quite tricky. According to the passage, which the following is most likely to hinder the growth of, which is likely to hinder the growth of formal employment in rapidly changing economies. It will be so difficult to track now. If the options are easy, we can. If they are difficult, in the rapidly changing economies, I don't know. Excessive rigidity in labor laws that discourage formal hiring while failing to provide sufficient work. Shift toward intangible assets like data, which require fewer workers and less direct labor. Oh my God, I'm done. According to the passage, which is most likely to stop the growth of formal employment in rapidly changing economies. Hinder. Excessive rigidity in labor laws can discourage formal hiring, while peak protections can leave workers vulnerable. Excessive rigidity in labor laws that discourage formal hiring while failing to provide sufficient worker protections, while weak protections can leave. I think that should be correct. Whoa! No problem. Yes. Thank you, Unnati, no problem. Absolutely. Thank God, to be honest, I got this. Otherwise, it's so difficult to find here across the passage. Across the passage. Thank you. Excessive rigidity in labor laws can discourage formal hiring. Excessive rigidity in labor laws can discourage formal hiring. Straight. Yep. Which of the following sequence defines the logical order of ideas presented in the passage? Yes, Vaibhav. Which of the following sequences best defines the logical order of ideas presented? The importance of universal social protection. Later on, they started with the history, I think. Uh, Historically, job creation was tightly linked to industrial expansion, and this now they are from intangible. Evolution of labor market due to technology, role of informal economy, significant of human capital, labor regulation and social protection, global inequalities in employment patterns. I think that should be correct. Yes, yes. Evolution of labor market you started with. Then role of informal economy. You did mention that. The first para, historically job creation was this. Then you came on to this informal sector. Yep, is correct. Sure. Which of the following statement best aligns with the nuanced perspective, I know, offered in the passage regarding the transformation of job creation in the modern business economy? Traditional indicators of economic performance are insufficient in capturing the value generated by the digital platforms and intangible assets. Whoa, exactly here. You are talking about those intangible assets here, data software. These assets, although difficult to quantify, to tell the quantity of through conventional economic indexes, are becoming central. So traditional indicators of economic performance are insufficient, difficult to quantify in capturing the value generated by digital platforms and intangible assets. Yep. I would say the first one is correct, matching the tone, not exactly stated. Industrial expansion continues to serve as the primary driver of employment. No, no, no. The passage started. Historically, the job creation was linked to industrial expansion. However, that means we have a change in tone. Modern economy are derived from intangible assets. So it doesn't continue to serve. Nature of productivity and job creation has shifted toward knowledge intensive sectors where value is increasingly derived from data, intellectual property, and software. Of course, yes, first and three. Which of the following statements correctly summarizes a key finding from the passage? Employment linked social safety nets remain effective in supporting all categories of workers, including those in this and that. I don't think so anything such was there. Social protection systems must evolve to ensure workers outside formal employment also receive it seems good to me, workers outside the formal employment also receive adequate support. Social protection systems must evolve. Social protection systems clearly stated must evolve. Traditional safety nets often tied to formal employment are becoming less effective. Oh, the first one is also wrong. It says traditional safety nets are becoming less effective. The first one says remain effective. No, they are less effective. I would click the second one without a doubt, undoubtedly. Okay, a couple more to finish things off. Uh, which of the following best captures the meaning of one of the report's core findings is that investment in human capital is now more critical than ever. One of the finding education, it says lifelong learning, adaptability are becoming essential as workers navigate a dynamic labor market shaped by rapid technological change. Countries that score high to be better positioned in the evolving business economy. Investment in technology and automation is more important. No, they are saying investment in human capital, not automation and technology. Workers' ability to adapt and learn new skills are vital to, but it won't define the investment in that to navigate the disruption caused by technological advancements in the labor market. Fine, but it won't define that investment is more critical now. Workers' ability is vital, so that's they have, but it is not going to define for sure. It's now more critical than ever. Nope. Government needs to invest heavily in infra. No, in human capital. Fourth or fifth has to be correct. Role of education and lifelong learning is essential in equipping workers. What they said? Human capital investment. Exactly. Role of education and lifelong learning is essential in equipping, investing for the evolving demands of the modern economy. The fifth one is wrong. It's now primarily dependent on industrial sector than human capital. Human capital, not the industry. We started with the industry historically. No, in the last one, which is not supported by the passage. Emergence of new job types in service and platform based sectors define how technological change is transforming the nature of employment. Of course, informal sector, while central to the employment, provides stable jobs. No, it lacks that security and such. Informal economy is often where most job creations occurs. These jobs, however, tend to lack security and benefits. They need to rethink about this. Informal sector, central because it creates more jobs, provides stable jobs. No, it has to be. It lacks security. The informal economy lacks security and benefits, highlighting the need to rethink about this. So it doesn't provide that. Done. Done. Rest of those have already been done. Thank you so much for being here. Bye bye. Take care. Be safe, everybody. Now, see you next week. But before you leave, let me mention that we have an offer here. Can use the code June in this June Mega Splash, which ends tomorrow, 4th of June. Splash into success, and you can join any specific course also, or can get the regulatory super elite also, in which you get one-on-one mentorship, say live classes, detailed notes for ESI, FM, and CA, complete test series, these batches, the upcoming batches, and the regulatory super elite. So do have a look before you leave. And yes, all welcome for RBI Grade B plans also. Flat 51% off using the code June. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye. Take care. Be safe. Would love to see you in the classes. Thank you. Any doubt, objection from anybody here is all welcome. Thank you, Vaibhav. Thank you, Shikha, Neha, Muskan. Thanks a lot for being here. Thanks a lot, everyone, for being here. I would love to say. Bubbly, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, honestly, for being here. Okay, see you pretty soon. Nancy, you too. Thank you so much. The jewel in the crown, last session, have a rest. You too, take care, be safe. Okay, see you pretty soon.